Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I'd like to cover my endgame Barbarian Sentinel build for Module 29. While stacked up in combat, you'll get over 3.5 million hit points with your important defensive stats maxed out. Just be aware you can switch out to a lot of group buffing options, and endgame groups will generally expect it and greatly appreciate it. So keep that in mind when you're working towards your endgame build. This will ultimately cover for maxing out your survivability so that you can get comfortable with the content, and once you learn it and know the important timings for when you need to have your abilities, you can end up switching to like more team support, improving the team's damage, allowing for faster completions. But yes, a dead tank is a useless tank, so it can always be best to stack survivability first, and later on you'll make the switch to more buffing options as you grow comfortable. But just be aware of them, as it can be expected towards endgame content. It's all a balancing act, even with your powers, as we will cover. So there'll be timestamps on the play bar below where you can skip to any section. The build document is linked below as well. And the first section we jump to is our power setup. So as a Barbarian tank, you have great potential. You can choose a lot of team support options, but you can also get a lot of defensive options and threat. So you're going to have to mix and match based on what you actually need with the groups you run with. For example, your at-wills here. You can run challenging slash when you're in multi-target and need some extra threat, or you could run Sure Strike for some extra stamina regen. Always have Sentinel Slash and cast it every 5 seconds to maintain the frustrating slash threat buff. With your encounter powers, you have some options here. I generally always use Come and Get It, always use like Takedown, and then it's switching between Enduring Shout for survivability or Not So Fast for the speed buff for the multi-target damage, and also the ability to trigger Trample of the Fallen if you're using that, which I do recommend if you don't need the extra threat here with the class features. And so with this Not So Fast, basically you can cast it and immediately cast block, and then you can basically get that speed boost for yourself and your party members. It's very nice there with that feat. But yeah, that's like the 4 main powers I would switch between. Then your daily powers, using like Crescendo for extra damage. If you do need a gap closer, there is Savage Advance, and then Battle High for survivability. If you're a really new tank and don't have good like defensive stats like we do in this build, then Primal Instinct to like max out that awareness and max out that crit avoidance can be a great help for tank busters. Otherwise, once you do have those stats, Battle High is better for the hit points, and you can use the feat to improve everybody else's hit points too. Just be aware of your mechanics here. You want to block as much incoming damage as possible, and you can generate a rage when you use your abilities and when you deal damage to people, and that allows you to enter unstoppable. We can see that here when we attack some enemies, just using some at-wills, and you can see you get that rage to that 50 mark, and then entering unstoppable gives you a whole bunch of boosts, including when you block, you gain like 15% critical avoidance. So it's really great there, and unstoppable increases your block up to 60% of your max HP. You will want to block as much damage as possible, as that's your role, and you don't want to tax the healer too much. So make sure if you have stamina, you're always blocking as many attacks as you can. You can interweave blocks between your attacks to also like animation cancel. So you'll cast like the start of the ability, then use block, and then cast it again, and it's all about timing and practice. But with this setup, you can generally enter unstoppable very quickly, and you're most of the time always in it. You'll be casting all of your encounter powers, entering unstoppable, and when that ends, you cast your encounter powers again, rinse and repeat. And that's again the setup I would use. What you want to be aware of is takedown and the feats. You can see we haven't chosen one yet, and that's because you either want to take the bottom feat if you need extra threat. If you don't need threat, then disarming takedown is definitely the way to go. You're going to increase the damage the target takes, and you're going to improve your team's damage output against the enemy. Same with like using Trample of the Fallen versus Threatening Presence. Threatening Presence is a huge threat boost, plus 500%. So if you're struggling with threat, absolutely use it. But otherwise, Trample is great for that damage increasing effect for your allies. And overall, that's what I would use for powers. Now we're going to go to our race and ability scores. So you will generally want to choose a race that gives you a boost to your actually defensive stats. So like hit points, defense, deflect, incoming healing, deflect severity here as well. And you can see the list here of the different races. And I would generally go, at least if you're planning to go into endgame, with the Menzoberranzan Renegade. It's the most useful one, with Fairy Fire reducing the enemy's defense and their damage output. But don't be afraid to run different alternatives if you just don't want to look like that. For the ability scores, we go Constitution and Charisma all the way. However, instead of Charisma, you could just go Strength for stamina regen and physical damage boost. So as a tank, you want to focus on your defensive stats, which are defense, awareness, crit avoidance, and after that, I recommend hit points. Then you will also want to get item level, which directly affects your hit points, and you'll also want to get things like recharge speed, movement speed, stamina gain, action points, and you'll get a mix and match of those throughout your choices. Be aware, deflect and deflect severity can be useful, and you will stack some of that, like the Topaz ring, where you can get a lot of it. Like this ring giving an insane amount of it means it is actually pretty useful, but they're definitely a more last priority kind of thing. After that, we go to our gear, and what should we be getting? You can see all of the options I have right here, and I find this is generally the best setup for survivability. Just be aware again of all the different team support options you can use, as you can see right here. Now the location of all of those survivability gear pieces are right here, with a bunch of alternatives. Like the headpiece, you don't have to have the enchanted one, you could just have the legendary one from the advanced version of the Lair of the Mad Dragon. And again, in this document you can see like the armor piece as well, you could use the one that comes from the advanced Lair of the Mad Dragon. Weapons, you can use the advanced Zoraxian weapons instead of the Void Touch ones, which we have right now from the Imperial Citadel dungeon. And overall, be sure to use a ring with the Charging Bull effect when you go into multi-target. You'll use that instead of, say, the Diamond Abyssal Loop, as the Manticore main bite is very useful for single target bosses. But then, while going into multi-target, be sure to have one of these rings that gives the Charging Bull effect. So we have the Dark Lake Ward ring that's got that, just coming from Mastercrafting. You should have to buy it from the auction house in most cases. And there's the Stalwart Needle Ring of Celerity, and there's also like the Ring of the Condemned. Now, if you're still a newer player, this guide is still very useful, as you can pretty much follow everything and just work towards this stuff. If you are new and still building up your character, you can see the different options to go through right there. I recommend watching this tank gear progression video to know exactly where all of those pieces come from, and I talk to you a bit more through it. But that should be it for gear. We quickly go to modifications, which are just going to be your armor kits and jewels that you put in here. So we've got 1 max HP, 1 crit avoidance, 1 max HP, and another crit avoidance. Then for the neck and rings, it's all just awareness jewels right there. After that, we go to our enchantments. So this is what we currently use, and we have all jades in defense with a garnet in utility. Then we have the overloads of like the Bulwark of Brimstone. This is generally just a stat flexing overload, giving you more hit points than you'll need. You're actually better off with the Resiliency of the Depths, which will effectively give you a lot more value. Every time you take damage, you're just flat out reducing it. But only use these overloads when you're in challenging content. For the combat enchantment, Fortified Nature is generally the most useful, maxing out that defense, awareness, and also that deflect when you get hit a lot. But there is the option Flash Freeze, which can be useful for like team support, reducing enemies damage so he deals less to everybody else. But it's just not very reliable, and these days I wouldn't really use it. Then we go to our artifacts, and here you're generally going with stamina regen boost ones. Mythallar Fragment, Scintillating Symbol of Water, Heart of the Volcano. These are like the highest item level ones you can get. But if you're still progressing in the game and those others are really expensive, well, there's a different options here. And of course you will want the Arcane Globe to complete your neck and waist set there. Your primary artifact, like the Mythallar Fragment, is really good, but to fit into certain groups, you might be wanting to use a different one from like these top 10. From there, we go to our boon points. And in the campaign section, you want to be getting like your defensive stats, so crit avoidance, HP, defense, awareness, more HP all the way. Get the movement speed. If you're running the latest dungeon, get demonic mastery. Get lingering medicine as soon as you get a few more points. Very useful if you're using potions instead of health stones. Second wind with the stamina regen, the forte here, the incoming healing here. Later on you can also get action point and recharge speed. Get the master boon like blessed resilience, probably the most useful to one there. But also get like blessed advantage for the heal over time. Get enhanced application also for the heal over time and damage resistance. And it is pretty useful to have life lessons and your focused retaliation. Even like getting bloodlust can be useful too. There's so many boon points you can use. Again, you can see all of the ones that I would recommend getting, at least starting out, here in the document. I just don't have a lot of points on my Barbarian right now, as it's been skimping on those campaigns. For your stronghold, make sure you get like power there, revive sickness, and the awareness boost. Now we go to our companions. Right now we have summoned the Winter Fox, and usually you wouldn't need to go for that. It's just again stat padding, hit points, power, forte. You really don't need it, and you're better off with just going with team support like Dredged, and I have a whole list of different options here. You can have some survivability ones like the Angel of Protection, your Stalwart Lion, your Riotous Wraith. All decent options there, but endgame groups, at least the ones who know how to play well, will generally want more damage boosts, so like Dredge, Tutor, Porchbella, Flapjack, etc. For the companion equipment, that's simply just from the new campaign, Mountain of Flame. All of the stuff here, you're just getting 3 molten belts of the companion. For your companion bonuses, sure, the best ones for survivability and self-heal is Redemption, but in most cases you'll want to go with team support. You can see with the list of them here. We've got then Elena Sartell from the Battle Pass. She's super good there with the heal and the damage reflect, but if you're running endgame, many groups will want you to run the Tamed Raptor. Then we've got the Moonshade Druid, the Lich, the Durgar Guard, and the Golden Deep Crow. Kind of all the best ones there, but there are many alternatives you can use here. And now we go to our mounts. So in our current tab, you want to have one that's going to support the team. You can see all the different useful ones right there. Generally the top 5 are the best. And you want to have like an aura, Pack Tactics, Mystic Aura, or Runic Aura, which I don't believe we have right here. Then in the stable, we're just going with all Fortitude insignias, although I believe we have like 1 Prosperity because we didn't need to overcap the defense. We got the bonuses like Survivor's Blessing, Lionheart's Perseverance, Suppressor's Reprieve, Knight's Condemnation, Champion's Return. All nice survivability effects that are going to give you a lot of heal over time. And that heal over time is also going to generate threat. Just check my mount document linked below of the different mounts and the different bonuses that you can gain through these. But you can see the different heal over time insignia bonuses right there. And just be aware Knight's Rebuke won't stack with Knight's Condemnation. All very useful. But do be aware there are team support effects like Allies Resilience. Unfortunately, it won't affect yourself. And then there is Shepherd's Devotion, which can be super useful when you cast a daily power, defense, and movement speed boost. With that, we then go to consumables. And this build is using Caprice, max HP and deflect, just coming from events. You can buy it super cheap from the auction house as well. Chocolate, max HP and awareness from your guild. Deflect potions, not very necessary, but you can get different rank ones depending on the price, and they'll just give you different amounts of ratings. Just get them off the auction house. And then Elixir of Steadfast Devotion you'll get through invoking, and you can buy them here. For the belt items, I do recommend a Stone of Health for those clutch scenarios when you really need it. The Blazing Aegis for the max hit points and the damage reflect, it's really great. But yeah, you could just use some other damage ones for extra threat. And then the Forger's Box, we have the Step In right now, but I do highly recommend working towards the Chain of Scales there. Just look for this video on exactly how to obtain it and upgrade it. And overall, that's it for the survivability build. I do recommend getting some options for team support. Again, like switching powers around depending on what you need. Have that Trample of the Fallen boost, have that Disarming Takedown, and then you can see here, get like the Marolith, Apocalypse, Vistani set. You can switch to the Illustrated Grace ring, the Masterwork weapons, those insignia bonuses like we mentioned. Even your headpiece can be the Turban of Shifting Sands to even further help pull enemies together. You already have Come and Get It, which helps a lot in that regard. The Bregan armor for the AP orbs, so DPS can fill their daily powers easier. Your companion, you can run again like we mentioned, Drid, Spine Devil, Porto, Tutor, Flapjack. Use the companion enhancements like Armor Break, Dull Senses, Vulnerability, and then use like Tamed Raptor if your party's using it. But all these things you'll switch depending on your comfort. If you're good at tanking, you get used to the content, and you find it's nice and easy for you, then yes, switch to these team support effects. Otherwise, focus on surviving initially, because again, like we said, a dead tank is a useless tank. If you die, all hell breaks loose, because everybody else will very likely die too if it's challenging content. Overall, I hope this was somewhat insightful. Thank you for watching, and another massive thank you to all the channel members for your extra support. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.